Hello strangelings, welcome back to my parlor. So today I'd like to talk about stories like My Fair Lady. Of course there are more than one rags to riches transformation story. And this one is in particular is more of a two rich people, if I remember rightly, it's two rich people having a dare as to whether they could actually turn her into a lady or not, if I remember rightly. There's a few like that, actually. And then there's a few that are honorable reasons. You have things like Tarzan, for example. And by Tarzan, I mean kind of more the Disney cartoon version. I believe they did try to bring him in and civilize him in the cartoon version, if I remember rightly. Of course, I think Tarzan is just another version of the Jungle Book, which the actual book to the Jungle Book is a lot different than the cartoon, trust me. So, yeah, you've got a lot of these stories where they transform this person who is uncouth and improper to this proper, always doing the right thing kind of person, right? Now, the way they present doing that in these stories is the way they actually do that, by the way. Sometimes it comes with a little bit more pain, but it's the way they do that. Now, of course, I'm sure there are especially new people here who are going to be like, well, how in the world would you know that? You couldn't possibly speak on that, but I actually can. Because of what happened to me as a child, I was considered a feral child. I was considered the type of feral child who grew up in society but was still feral. There are quite a few of us out there. It usually is those of us who our abuses started within the first month to the first year of life. And where on that scale they are tends to be more how more feral they are. Me, of course, 2 weeks old, I was considered extremely feral, especially in my reactions to other children. I did not react the way a socialized human child does. In fact, I didn't react the way a socialized human child does to the adults around me either. So, it took me a while, and there were a lot of lessons. I had a lot of lessons about, trying to teach me to turn my apprehension into a safety net. I.e., we know that the mountains are burning out here today, but have been burning for months. And I'm not sure how long. They did stop burning for a little while, but they were burning into the winter this last year too. So we've been burning for a long time over here, and some of this is on my side of the mountain. So of course some of this could be moving towards my house. So my mother taught me over time to turn my apprehension about that fire into making sure I have my stuff packed, the most important stuff packed, so that if that fire hits, if I need to, I can grab my bag, throw it on my back, and walk the hell out away from the fire, So, which is super important, not having a vehicle, let me tell you. If you can walk out of the fire because you don't have a car. Just saying. But, that's how I was taught as a feral child. But that's not how the therapists who were trying to work with me was trying to teach me as a feral child. They literally were trying to... I remember one of them was trying to point me hard towards Christianity. And my mother being a Methodist, it worked for a little while, but after you see what some Christians are willing to do in the name of God and Christ, it's hard to be full Christian ever again. And, I mean, a just and loving God wouldn't let that happen to me at 2 weeks old anyway, so I don't care about no tests. Why would a just and loving God be testing a 2-week-old? Anyway, so they were trying to teach me the same way that they do with other feral children, the children that they find out in the woods that have survived because they've befriended a pack of wolves, or the child who, you know, has been so abused that she was essentially tied to a high chair pretty much her entire life. And now she's being rescued at 8. Yes, this is a real case, by the way. Man. She even had experimentation done after they rescued her. So. Anyhow. So I had experienced the same type of societarial training that these other feral children had experienced. However, I also had experience with my mother, who understood far better what I needed to learn than these professionals in the room seemed to understand. Instead of trying to help me to fix my damage, most of the therapists that I've talked to in my life have instead tried to help me fit into society better. Well, the little white lies you need to tell, and well this and well that, you know. But unfortunately, that's not what was going to be healthiest for me. Fortunately enough, my mother was a person in my life who understood. I had a couple other people who understood what I was going to need, and they helped too. But had I been left to my own devices and therapy, as most feral children are. I'm sorry, I've got the hiccups all of a sudden. I don't know why. Then I probably would have been, well, if I were to extrapolate out who I would have been, I wouldn't have been as good of a person, for sure. My theft and lying would have gone for much, much, much longer. I would have not cared nearly as much about anyone's feelings. Especially considering that caring about people's feelings is how you get further damaged in the way I was damaged. Is how you let yourself become a further victim instead of a survivor. Now, of course, I never wish upon anyone that they go through abuse, nor that a child around them will. But I make this video to encourage anyone who's watching. If you have a child who has gone through some severe trauma, especially if they went through that trauma so early that there was no ability to create a sense of self, like in the case of me and so many other children who are abused before we're even a month old. Because you see, the first 3 years, part of that is creating the sense of self. So if you happen to have someone in your life who's a child who has been through some severe trauma, especially extremely early, I would like to encourage you to not see them as necessarily a child. Yes, they are a child, and yes, they deserve to be a child. They deserve to be allowed to be a child. I personally do not understand the experience of being allowed to be a child. Not because my mother did not allow me to be a child, but because she didn't have the time, money, and ability to help me with being a child. There was so much that goes into a lot of that child play that those of us who have suffered severe trauma cannot experience. And that's because our view of the world is different, so our ability to experience things is slightly different. Yes, let them have childhood wonder, but at the same time, don't treat them so much like a child, but as someone who needs to know about the world around them. I believe personally the reason why I do not react to my trauma the way many trauma survivors react, especially in similar cases to mine, is because of the fact that it was never the court said, you're too young, that should have never happened to you, we're going to make sure that you get to live your life the way you're supposed to as an innocent child. Sure. But the adults around me who were smart enough to know, they never tried that. Because how do you react like this is a child to someone who is not reacting like a child? So, I guess this video is pretty much to say, if you have a child who's been through trauma in their lives, especially young trauma, young trauma, yes, give them a little bit of childhood here and there, but don't expect them to be actually children. Expect that they're going to be more adult, and instead of trying to force the childhood on them, react as if you're talking to a small adult who doesn't completely understand every concept they talk about, but definitely in the case of me, definitely will start understanding more and more the more you talk to them like they understand. Alright guys, I'm gonna get out of here, but you know what it is. I love you no matter who you are. Take care of each other. And I'll see you guys in the next video.